Hey folks, George Leoniak here, back with another video with new geometry. And today we're going to get into the star Chestahedron a little bit more. I did a video on that about 2 videos ago, and I have some really neat discoveries that have come out of that as I've kind of expanded the form in new ways. And it's led me into, just some real new sculpts that I'll be showing you here that are related to it. And join me for this. I think this is going to be really interesting in relationship to the flower of life or the seed of life pattern. This one's going to be really neat because it's going to really change your perspective possibly on how that image may actually have been Chestahedrons looking down at it the whole time rather than cubes. So please join me in this discovery as we take a look at some of the most classic images in sacred geometry, the seed of life, and how it relates to the Chestahedron. It could totally be a mind-bending experience. So you've been warned. If you want to continue on, please do, but know that this might change your view of how you look at those images for the foreseeable future. So let's continue on. I've got my presentation set up to share the screen. So I'll walk you through as I normally do. So this is the first image that I ended my presentation a while ago on the star Chestahedron. And one of the things I noticed with that, because I went on to build this, and I put 2 Chestahedrons, here they are, they're both in blue, and one is facing up and one is facing down. And as you could see, this one here, there was no place for them to meet at the edges here. So they were kind of loose, kind of floating around in one another until I just pulled them apart further. And then they were able to connect at the top and bottom or along the edge faces here. And then I was able to connect those together. So that was really kind of the start of my exploration, was to kind of create this expanded star Chestahedron from that point of this one with the kind of sunken down in. Now, the reason this one is down in like this is because this was all about putting the 2 Chestahedrons in a sphere so that all the points would be contacting the surface of that sphere. So that kind of made the Chestahedrons kind of sunk down in. But when I pulled them further apart, well, then only 2 of the vertices, as you could see here, will be in contact with the surface of the sphere. So this double kind of Chestahedron, star Chestahedron, will be able to kind of oscillate freely within this because it doesn't have all those points in contact. So I really worked with this form here with the Earth grid, not the Earth grid, the core of the Earth, the inner core in relationship to the Chestahedron, was really with this sphere model here. So anyway, here is the blue model that I was just showing you. Here's a little paper model that I have here as well that is going to show you that there's a new form that has been constructed out of the double star Chestahedron that has some really amazing properties to it, not only geometrically, but also mathematically, which we'll get to at the end. Some of the values in this are really mind-blowing. The numbers that are associated with these sides of the faces and things like that. So so that's what I did. I extended the star Chestahedron, connected it to the edges like this, and then one thing that is always interesting is through my exploration of this is that I've kind of discovered that the Chestahedron is really kind of an expansive type of form, moving out of the kind of a contracted tetrahedron. This is the star tetrahedron that many people are familiar with, especially if they're into the flower of life meditation or the star tetrahedron. Many people view and meditate this as if they're in this star with their head towards the point and their feet down towards the bottom point. And the Chestahedron is extending, it's opening up the sides of the tetrahedrons and creating the space for the pentagon shaped star points to fit in here, the star points to fit in. So as that kind of opens up, here I have this model here, and I'm going to have to show you a lot of this at the end, but here's our tetrahedron that's folded up. And as it opens up, the star points will fit into this. And that's how the Chestahedron is made, out of these components, the 3 star points of the 5-pointed star and these 3. And then the Chestahedron is come together for the 7-sided form, just like that. And now we have 2 of them here. And as it continues to expand, this is the kind of magic location where they have now gone outside of all the points touching the sphere. Only 2 are touching, but we have this cross section where the edge of the bottom triangle is going to meet the face of that kite, the long kite face. So this kite now is going to be coming into contact with the edge of the base triangle, kind of like that. So now, one thing that I always enjoyed about looking at this is that they're the same size triangles from above. So without perspective, just in the drawings by themselves. So if we just drew this, you know, the 2 triangles in this kind of Star of David, it's all, you know, been called formation. From above, it just is like the same look. It's just in 2D. There's no depth perspective to this drawing. So I've been saying in my previous videos, how do we know what the height of those triangles are from one another? Because they could be a cube, which is essentially a star tetrahedron. You can make a cube around this. It could be the Chestahedrons in a sphere, or now it can actually become this extended star Chestahedron in this kind of expanded way. Which one is it from this view? There's no manual that tells you this. The geometry can be any way we would like to view it, because these dimensions are just changing by the height, not as much by the vertical. You can't really tell what's going on vertically, like I'm showing you in this image here. So anyway, I went on to discover that you can draw a line. And let me back up here, because this line will just extend all the way down. And I discovered that when I made this blue wire model. I was like, hey, you know, I think this, if I just extend that line from the edge of the kites where they meet down to the base of the triangle, that they should be able to, it looks like it will meet. So I did the drawing accurately here, and it does. It does meet there, which is amazing to me that it would meet. So yeah, here we are. We've got that kind of extended down and connecting the Chestahedron that's pointing up to the Chestahedron that is pointed down. And you could see that this kind of creates a elongated type of cube. I had one prop that I wanted to show you, but I don't have nearby. It's made out of like the little metallic buckyballs. And if you make a cube out of that and you just kind of extend it like this, you'll see it stretches out into this diamond-like shape, which essentially this is a 6-sided form that's just been kind of stretched out like a cube. A cube is a very unstable form. It just, it will move around quite a bit if it doesn't have any cross sections within it to kind of give it the stability. So this is essentially what that is. It's kind of a tilted over kind of cube. You know, it just looks like someone kind of just pushed the cube over from the side and it just tilted over in that direction. And that's really all it could be. But because the Chestahedrons are in this, it actually adds some amazing, unique properties, because we've got this Phi-based relationship going on with this kite face. So what's going to happen to this special tilted over cube of this star Chestahedron? It kind of really has been extended out. Now, before I get into that kind of cool mathematical discoveries that come with that, let's just talk about how this gets related to how this relates to the seed of life, and it could be the flower of life. It just really depends how I want to subdivide these circles. But first of all, we could draw our seed of life, and in many of my recent videos, I've been talking about this red circle that's around this smaller central blue circle and the large blue circle that it goes around. Well, the relationship between the large blue and the red circle here is in phi relationship, meaning if this were 1 inch for the big circle diameter, this would be 0.618 for this one. So that's a phi relationship between those. And you need that to create this little kind of flared out edge that the Chestahedron has from above. So when you're looking down at the Chestahedron, you'll see that this is hidden back here and this kind of extends out. It's because this upper triangle is phi 0.618, let's just say, and the base triangle is 1. So we've got that phi relationship. Now remember, this is also the icosahedron, same version. You can draw it. The icosahedron needs to be drawn with the same little extended flared out edge here, the broken line that I'm describing here. So from above, the Chestahedron fits perfectly over the seed of life pattern with that flared out edge. But this is the really interesting thing about this, is if I remove those red lines and we just look at this as a cube, we can just take away the black lines on this. We're basically looking at still the outer shape of this is still just going to be a hexagon that has now an edge that continues all the way back to the other edge to create a cube from that view. So, you know, we have no way of knowing which is which from that vertex view. So I took that a little bit further because the common thing is to subdivide each of those large square, larger units. So we could subdivide this whole cubic shape into smaller cubes, right? So here's just a regular cube, and we can now divide that cube into 8 cubes, okay? And that is then creating this seed of life, 8 cubes. So we've got 1 in the center, 1 directly behind that one, and then the 6 around this. So that would make 8 total cubes in this. But the funny thing is that we're not actually looking at cubes here. This is actually chestahedrons. This is little chestahedrons now that are making up each of those cubes. They look exactly like hexagons from above, and they have that little flared out area. But even if I remove the little flared out area, I still have this rhombic face, which is basically telling me that, yes, it will look like a hexagon from above, but when I remove these red lines, it will just look like, a cube, essentially, because it's taking up the same space. But how tall is that cube? Is it just square, or are those faces elongated rhombic faces, or are they square? From above, you can't really tell. Now, this might not be mind-blowing to you as it is to me, but in the discovery process of checking that out, it was really making me wonder, how do I know this is squares the whole time? Maybe it's the chestahedrons or the rhombic dodecahedron, as I've described in other videos. So this is how this pattern was created, and this is another one of the root patterns that I think is really significant to sacred geometry and will become more so in the future, is how we create the seed of life with the normal size circles, and then we add in the red phi-based circles, which means these are in phi relationship to one another, the red and the blue here. And then we just take that same circle, the red one, and put it on all the other ones. And that gives me all the locations where I have to draw in the chestahedron points. So that's how that drawing was done in relationship to this seed of life pattern, the phi-based version of the seed of life. which has that life component really infused into it because of Phi's relationship to many things in life. So here we go. We also got this would be the large chestahedron or star chestahedron, because remember, this is now two chestahedrons, one pointing up, one pointing down. And the large one would be the whole shape. And then these are half the size of this one would be the little squares in there. So it's essentially replicating, just as the cube would do, the half size squares for the full shape there. So we've got half of this height, basically, is what I'm saying. And there it is in the photograph, and I'll just compare that coming up to the other cube from above. Now, if I just drew lines on this, now this has been segmented out so I could pull these pieces off with little Velcro in between them. But if these were just neatly packed together, you wouldn't see these gaps here. And if I remove these lines of the chestahedrons that are in this rhombic face shape, you would be slightly confused whether this shape was the same as this one, because the perspective really doesn't drastically change all that much in these 2D photographs. So yeah, that's my main point with the flower of life and seed of life component, is related to the length of those rhombic faces. Now, that's all cool. Like, I can extend those triangles as far as we want to create any size rhombic face, but there's going to be something, as I get to it, very specific about the length of these rhombic faces that's going to really be something that fits into the sacred geometry, especially the sacred mathematics as it relates to it. So here are the two same size forms. Here's the smaller half size ones of the larger one here. And the little chestahedrons pointing up and down, and the larger ones. Now, I've got these dotted lines on the large one, and that is going to just show you how this relates to the cube in itself. So the regular cube. And I made another little model. I'm just going to wait to the end to show the little show and tell, but I took the photos here for you to look at. But I created a model with the cube from this view with a little window into the side. So you're able to see that the shape inside the cube is this double star tetrahedron that has the same planes. So it's got the same plane through the middle, the same plane at the 1/3 of the way up, and in the bottom 1/3 as well. So this shape is divided into thirds, just like the star tetrahedron or the cube would be. And that became really significant in my next sequence of discoveries, is placing the double star tetrahedron back into the cube, removing it from just trying to make it in its own isolated sphere, like I was doing previously in the first star chestahedron video I did 2 videos ago. So as I was looking at this, so many people are really fascinated with the Merkaba and the body of light, and the putting yourself in the star the star tetrahedron pattern. And in many of my videos, if you check them out, this is a kind of constant question that comes up. The last time I described this was like, well, you could be an octahedron, you could be in a icosahedron, you could change that cap that's on your head, and it just opens up your consciousness to different discoveries as you kind of play with the geometries in and around your energetic body. So why not do that kind of with the chestahedron? Because it's essentially within the cube. So, I basically said, what's this shape going to look like in some of the most classic root patterns of the vesica Pisces, for instance? Because if you draw the regular cube in the vesica, well, that extends way out past this, because root 3 is what the cube is built on. So let me just back up in geometry here. The internal diagonal of the cube, so we've got the diagonals across the face of the cube, but we also have these diagonal that goes through the middle. And that would be what your vertical star tetrahedron would look like there, right? So that is root 3, and that divides this into thirds along here, and those are where the star points would be. And of course, as you could see in this little model, they're much wider than the diamond shape that I have in there. So they would be extended out to this far. And interestingly, when I put this shape, now these are not exactly on these lines, but they're very close. And if you rotated this diamond body here, the form here, the star Chestahedron diamond version, if you rotate it just slightly to the left, you'll see that it doesn't fit perfectly in the vesica. But that wasn't really the point. It's just that I saw that it looked like it might fit closely. And of course, you are here, like that's, you explore this geometry. And for me, what it's done is, when I, in the past, of course, to visualize myself in this star tetrahedron, early on, and played with all the geometries and feeling into the geometries. And when I expanded this, it felt like I could breathe all of a sudden, instead of feeling like I'm smushed in a little box. You really like breaking out of the box. Build a cube out of those buckyballs, those little ones if you have it, pick it up, and automatically the bottom will just sag down, because there's no structure to it. It just sags down into this shape, this diamond shape. And there might be a reason why so many of these classic images that we see here of light and beings are discovered, are found within these vesica type of shapes, right? I mean, look how many they show up. They're found primarily here in the Christian tradition, but on temples, places of worship. The vesica shape, the human body is always contained in that vesica shape. So as I go back to this one, here's a form, this diamond shape, that is very much reminiscent of the vesica shape, the elongated cube. It just, no, I never say one version of any of these forms are better than the other. You just have to discover this and feel it for yourself. But just start to imagine, or if you'd like, picture yourself within a shape like this, and just how you feel, and go back and forth between the tetrahedron and this type of shape, and just feel into your body what it feels like. That's my only suggestion. So, okay, now this, we're going to switch gears here a little bit. A couple little slides to wrap this up. This is going to lead to what the mathematics of this are based, and it's not a heavy duty math presentation at this point out at all. There's really one value that I'm shooting for here that's may blow you away. It definitely blew me away. So this is a video that I did, the as above, so below video on the double pentagon. That was probably maybe a month and a half, almost 2 months ago that I did this. And this just shows me that, like, when you're doing sacred geometry, you don't really know what you're doing months ahead of time, how it's going to inform what the next steps are. This is before I even revisited the Chestahedron. But all of a sudden, this pattern became hugely important to this star Chestahedron. It's essentially the template for it is within this design. Now, why was this design so special to me back at that point, and now is even greater, even more special, is because I devised this way based on this Phi-based circles. Now, remember, this red circle is in relationship to this blue circle in Phi proportions. So it's a double vesica that's happening here. It's not just a single vesica. We've got a double vesica happening, okay? Now, look at some of these vesicas within these shapes here. We've got a couple vesicas going on here. We've got an outer vesica. We've got multiple vesicas. We've got a larger vesica here. We'll take a look at these vesicas in relationship. So here's a vesica from the blue circles, and then here's the vesica from the red. And I walk through this in this step-by-step process, and essentially the double pentagons created beautifully accurately are created just within, if this is 1 inch, right? And we want to get 1 inch all the way around to have a perfect lawful pentagon, as Frank will say, what will happen is here, we're going to swing our arc up and it magically touches the outer circumference of the large blue circle that's in Phi relationship to the red. It's just a phenomenal drawing and so simple to do that the steps are really contained within this 6 sequence steps right here of how I went about this. So please check out the as above, so below drawing. One of my upcoming apprenticeship that I'm doing, one of the people in the course in that apprenticeship has checked this out, and she created a seed of life version of this and sent it to me the other day. So I'm just really thrilled that, you know, a simple pattern like this is being elaborated on, explored, and taken further for what other types of forms might be in there. It's just really neat to see, and it creates that, based on that double phi relationship in here, she mirrored the pentagons all the way around on those 6 planes, which was just awesome. So these are the steps. I'm not going to go through them. It's all in that other video. But towards the end of that video, and this is what I'm coming to, because now it's going to relate back to our form here that I'm mentioning. This one here, whoops, this one here is part of this design. And at the end of that video, the as above, so below video, I describe, well, as above, so below, I've got the double pentagons. And then I said, oh, well, I also have, you know, as within, as without, because, you know, these double pentagons could also be created. And I'm not showing where the intersection points are, how I've got those points, but it's easy to find if you were to just follow the video out. But here we go. We got these crossing of the upper and pentagon and the other pentagon fusing together across the top. And what that gave was this diamond-shaped rhombus. And it didn't mean anything to me at the time. I mean, it was cool, but it didn't have any significance, like, what is that going to be? This is 2 months ago that this drawing came about. And I was just like, oh, cool, as within, as without. Great, I'll just put that in the video, right? But that is created, and it's a very special rhombic face because it happens to be this rhombic face of the double Chestahedron, of the double star Chestahedron here, okay? This diamond body of light, that type of shape that I'm describing it as. This shape right here, here's the same layout, the same drawing in the light gray back behind, with the double pentagons coming to meet within. Here they are, coming down like this, creating that rhombic diamond face. And here's the blue pentagon. All I have to do is just extend, or the red one, all I have to do is extend the line from the bottom of the vesica all the way up, right over to here, and it hits that corner spot between the 2 vesicas. And that then, once it ends at this section of the face where it meets the rhombic face, well, that's this kite shape right here. The kite is in this drawing. It was in this rhombic face months ago when I discovered this. It was right here all along. All I had to do was just draw the line up to here, and then I've got my kite for the Chestahedron and essentially this form. And I didn't discover all that until I made the net, meaning I made the template for building this little 6-sided diamond form here. Right, so I didn't really, and maybe diamond's not the best word, but that's the what I'm using for it. So yeah, I was built the form so I could lay it out and then just fold it up to create this, right? Certainly a lot less cutting than a lot of the other elaborate designs, so I appreciated that. It was pretty easy to make this multiple one very quickly. But this face right here is 1-for-1 with the one you see, well, not 1-for-1, but it could be with this one right here. And that just is amazing to me that it was in the drawing, and it's part of the root sacred geometry that pertains to those phi-based circles that I'm talking about. And that's just one application of those phi-based circles, because I have a few videos in line that I'm trying to get to. They're just too many to get to all at once, that are describing those phi-based circles and the forms that they create in all these other views, all the other flower of life patterns, because those phi-based circles are that fundamental to this new geometry. Even Frank used them early on. But anyway, here's the big slide that I wanted to finally work my way up to. And here are the results. And this just was astonishing, jaw-dropping astonishing for me, because all of a sudden I discovered that the pyramid, Kepler's triangle, the Phi-based pyramid, is contained within this new drawing that I worked on. And not only that, it's the length when it's based on a √3. I'm going to have to slow down here just a bit. But just to tell you that height of the pyramid is the length down the center from top to bottom of the kite. That is the square root of phi, which is the same as the inner height, from the center of the pyramid to the apex, the same as that magic square root of phi, which for Jane Mathematics, who's working on the revolutionizing the true value of pi at 3.144, this is the magic number that he uses to get that value of this new value of pi that he's working with for squaring the circle and other things. But that magic value is in Kepler's triangle, and it just so happens to be, like I'm saying, this length of this kite face right here is the same length. When, this is the important part, when you base it on the √3 vesica, okay? So this is how I got to the calculations, is if this is √3, which means these are 2-inch diameter circles, that will be √3, this length, which is 1.732, okay? And when I do all the math to figure all this out, I finally come up with that value for that face of that pentagon, which is the same height. So if I took this and slid it back into here, it would be the same height as that √3 dimension. So we know that our star Chestahedron is now √3. That means that length of that edge is the square root of phi. And I don't know any other forms that I've done calculations on or come across that incorporate that value either as an edge length or a value for a face of a form. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if there's something else, but that's highly significant to have the square root of phi showing up, which is the amazing angle in the pyramid that's really tough to figure out how to measure, get with the sacred geometry for squaring the circle and things like that, is that length. So yeah, DC equals BA, and I even did the little computer snapshot here to show you that the computer is indicating with the blue line that AB equals CD, and that this means that this edge is 1.618, and if this is 2 inches or 1 inch here, if this is 1 inch, that will be square root of phi for the height. And the other amazing thing is that it's in the drawing that I just show you, as above, so below. And I didn't know it at the time. It's like, okay, I discovered this, I didn't know it, and then all of a sudden I find it's the rhombic face, great, I didn't know, and now I know that. And then all of a sudden the Chestahedron led me back to this drawing so that I could discover the pyramid in this. And it's very easy to do, because once you do that base drawing, all you do is just extend your line through that, once again, this special spot, or these, where it's meeting the two circles here, straight up through until it connects to the other circle, and that's the height of 1.272. So yeah, square root of phi is in there, it's on the surface of that, and that makes this a very interesting form based on that. And I just added some little artistic embellishment to it. Very quick, I did this little very quickly adding some color to it. And then once again, I placed the person in this space. You are here within all this beautiful geometry at multiple levels with the pyramid and the squared circle. These little corners are the square, and the circle that cuts through that would be the unification of spirit and matter as one. Spirit and matter are not two separate things. And the pyramid representing it with this diamond version of the double Chestahedron. And yeah, so that was, I just wanted to put a lot into that video with a lot of little different pieces. Sorry for the length again, but there's just so many components that are coming up regularly that I try to put as many little link things together in one video. So let me just, as I wrap this up, because I know many of the forms were far away. Let me just do a quick show and tell. I mean, you've seen this form enough in the demonstration, through the presentation. Here are the smaller little ones connected. And now you can infinitely continue to build onto these. So if I put another one over here in this chestahedron here like this, I'll just then replicate. If I take 8 more of these, 8 of these together, put it together, I'll just have a larger one. And that will just continue on and on and on and on. And from above, from a vertex view, looking down at this, it could be the flower of life pattern from above, just as much as this cube view, right? So just reiterating things in the video, but now maybe you can see it a little better as I hold it. These have the same apparent edge length. They look to be the same edge length from here, right? When we're looking at these two as 2 hexagons. But when I rotate them to their vertex view, all of a sudden we have this one over here on the left and this one over here on the right, or right and left this way. So, it's amazing to me of how this is working out. And like I said, you could just tilt this cube over like any type of tilted over cube, but this is the square root of phi. So it's a very specific spot that's tilted over because that chestahedron in there is so critical, the both of them in there, to this shape. So it might very well be not just a cubic consciousness or a cubic universe, it might be a chestahedron universe. So, how'd I get there? Well, this was kind of the sequence from, halfway there with this version until I finally extended them fully by pulling the 2 chestahedrons further apart so they meet like this. And that's kind of the internal wire framework. All you have to do is connect that line down to there. And it was quite fun to kind of just, colorize it like this. And another neat thing, I think maybe I skipped through this slide very quickly, but when you place the, it's like you place the edges together of the form rather than having the faces meet like in this one. You turn it around so the edges meet of those little chestahedrons, and it comes up with this neat little starfish, malleable little person-y type thing. It could kind of turn into like a little dog. I could see this as an awesome like little kid's toy or something. But the cool thing is when you lay it completely flat, the 5-pointed star is right in there. So the essential geometry is part of this structure. The last one here is just a little, here's a more up close version of the 2. You could see how the lines rotate. And I think that was pretty clear in the video. And just one other kind of little fun play toy for the kids would be this chestahedron, star chestahedron in the sphere. Now, this wasn't an exact fit, but when I spin this around on the floor sometimes, that inner chestahedron will just get spinning around so fast in there as it spins around rather than all the vertexes being stuck to it. So anyway, just some of the little fun explorations I do with it. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was really it definitely was an enlightening week or week and a half of working with this form and just making these discoveries in relationship to it that are new to me. And I'm thankful to share it with you. I hope there was something in there that kind of expands your perspective of some of the most classic sacred geometry forms that we're familiar with, like the seed of life, and that, we have the ability to go deeper in these forms and look at how it may be expansive, just like this is showing, right? And from this to this could be the same thing from the above. So that pattern continues to produce many new ways of looking and holding multiple perspectives all at once. And I think that's key, that we don't need to latch on to, oh, it's a cube, it's a chestahedron, it's a rhombic dodecahedron. The ability to move malleably in your thinking, to have your heart hold all those at once and not have to have both have one or the other, but have the both and scenario, really gives the ability to work with these forms multidimensionally. So have a great rest of your week. Thank you for watching. And until next time, much love and peace.